If you don't want to listen to me talk for a minute or two explaining my video, you can skip to this time right here to get straight to the list. Hey everyone, it's Snake Eater. Doing things a little different today. Obviously, I'm gonna be showing my face for the video, or try it out, see how it works. I don't know. Anyways, this video is gonna be me talking about my favorite suicide-friendly champions, part 2. So I was looking at my first video, and I was thinking there were some champions that I left off the list, and there was also some champions that were on the honorable mentions that deserve a promotion. Before I start the video, I want to explain my criteria for which champions qualify as my favorite to go with Suicide Masteries. Number 1 is immunities, a way to deal with the poison and bleed debuffs. Number 2 is turning a negative into a positive, like turning those debuffs, which are obviously a negative because they're debuffs, and turn that into a positive. For example, Elsa Bloodstone. At the start of the fight, if she's bleeding, she puts a degeneration on the opponent. And then also Black Widow Clairvoyant, she turns those debuffs into power gain. Those 2 champions are on my part 1 list. And then number 3 is regeneration, because the suicide debuffs, they wear down your health after a while. A normal champ without any immunities or anything, at the end of the fight, they're gonna have like 90 to 92% health, and depends on other factors in the fight. You might have around like something in the 80s, the 80% health range. So if you have regeneration, it helps a lot, boosting your health back up. Number 4, this one can be up for debate, but champions that don't rely on constantly spamming the special one. For example, Void. I don't think Void is a very suicide-friendly champion, because when you're using Void, you basically only want to use the special one to get those debuffs on the opponent. And obviously when you're using suicides, you have recoil damage. And using special one over and over and over again with no regeneration, you know, that's gonna wear down your health after a while. But still, special one spamming, I believe that's a big negative when it comes to deciding if I like champions that go low suicides. All right, also disclaimer, these champs are not ranked in any order, in any particular way. They're not like ranked my favorite to least favorite. They're just, I just have them in any order I want. Also, this is just my personal opinion. These are just my favorite champs that go well with Suicide Masteries. I run suicides every day. I never turn them off. I've been using them for about maybe a year or 2 now. All right, enough talking. Let's just get straight to the list now. I don't think I even mentioned him on my previous video, is Hulkbuster. Now, he needs to be awakened, and his awakened ability gives him a pretty damn good regeneration once he gets to a low amount of health. And that regeneration is huge because whether it's from recoil damage or the debuffs or whatever, pops your health back up. And with suicides, that's one of the biggest things, is you're always losing health unless you have regeneration to counter that. So also, he's not using special one a whole lot. Hulkbuster is an amazing champ. His special one's badass, but if you're using the correct rotation, you should be using the special 2 to power drain and then heavy spam in the corner usually. So special one's nice because it gives an armor break and a, a stun, but it's not needed. You usually want to use that special 2. Next champ is Immortal Abomination. Now, he wasn't on my list before because he was still a fairly new champ when I made that video, and also I didn't have him yet, but now I have him as a 5-star rank 5. I've had him as a 5-star rank 5 since January, I believe. And he's pretty badass with suicides because he's not immune to poisons, but he takes, I forgot what it says in his abilities specifically, but he takes 0 damage from poison. So, and he can stack multiple poisons on top of himself. So once the bleed debuff goes away, he heals from the poisons. He doesn't take any damage. But the one thing is poison reduces your regeneration effects. So the more poisons you stack on yourself, the less regeneration you're gonna get. But still, he's constantly regenerating when he has multiple poisons on himself. And then also, he places a weakness debuff on the opponent. That means less chip damage, less block damage from the opponent. And next champ I want to talk about is Magik. Now, she did get an honorable mention on my other video, but she deserves to be on this video for my favorite suicide champs, because whenever she's in limbo, all damage that she takes from anything, she regenerates that back when limbo is over. So she activates limbo after every special attack, and then she has a chance to activate limbo after she gains a bar of power, and then 2 bars of power and 3 bars of power. So if she's taking damage from the suicide debuffs, poison and bleed, and she's in limbo, she'll regenerate that damage back. And also recoil damage. If she's in limbo while recoil is active, she'll regenerate that recoil damage back. And that's just crazy. She almost entirely just mitigates suicide damage. I don't know what my dumbass was thinking when I made the first video, but Wolverine deserves to be on the list. I put him as an honorable mention. He's not an honorable mention. I'm pretty sure he has the strongest regeneration buffs in the entire game. And that's probably why they kept him out of the 5-star pool for so long, because his regeneration was just too strong. I'm not too sure. I don't know. That's just what everyone's been thinking and speculating. But they put him in the previous featured 5-star, and I got him a couple times. I got him awakened. He's like Sig 160 now, I think. And yeah, his regeneration's crazy. Especially when he's a Horseman of Apocalypse. He's bleed resistant, so he regenerates from the bleed debuff. And then on top of that, his regeneration buffs are just crazy. I remember I was doing a fight and the Cavalier difficulty. I messed up. I was around like 20% health. And then when a couple regenerations kicked in, I ended the fight at like 80% health or 90. It was crazy. I regenerated almost all the damage I took. The more power he has means more stronger regeneration. So you never want to use a special one, because special one's weak anyways. It barely does any damage. So you usually want to use the special 2 or the special 3. And sometimes you just don't even want to use any special attacks, because keep that regeneration rate as high as possible and just kill the opponent with bleeds or critical bleeds. Now, I made a video about Sasquatch a couple or a few months ago, and I was showing the more rage stacks he has, the less damage he takes from all sources, which also includes suicide debuffs and recoil damage too. So I don't think enough people are talking about this. I think it's a bit overlooked. I think Sasquatch is a great option for suicide masteries, because once he's up to a few stacks of rages, he mitigates the suicide mastery damage, and at some point he actually heals more than he's taking damage from the bleed and the poison. So his regeneration stays the same throughout the fight, but the poison and the bleed debuff, that damage gets lower and lower for every rage stack he has. So at some point he's regenerating more compared to the damage he's taking from the debuffs. And also he mitigates the recoil damage, and that's crazy. I don't think there's any champ in the game that can change the recoil damage. Not any champs I can think of. I think he's the only one that I've ever heard or experienced that. And Sasquatch can be a little iffy with suicides, because his special 1 refreshes all of the rupture debuffs on the opponent. So I've seen players where they just spam the special 1 over and over to keep those debuffs up. And I haven't really, sometimes it's important, but I haven't really, seen it as essential. Most of his damage comes from the special 2. And on top of all that, his special 3 has a small regeneration. And any regeneration when it comes to suicide debuffs are always appreciated. Alright, I don't know how or why I'm just figuring this out just now. Like, I literally just figured this out like right before I started recording this video. Namor is a champ I don't have a whole lot of experience using. I know he's a badass, I've just never used him. Now, I've heard from people that he's good with suicides because of his regeneration from his special 1 and special 2. But they nerfed his regeneration, and I just figured, he's just one of those champs I never really touch, because I have him as a 6-star, he's not awakened. I have him as a 5-star, but he's only Sig 40 right now. For the longest time I had a 5-star Namor, he just wasn't awakened. So, and I know that awakened ability is important for his utility, because he takes all damage while he's attacking. All the damage that he takes while attacking, he mitigates that. It scales with his Sig level, and once he's Sig 200, he takes 100% less damage when he's attacking. So I always figured, he needs to be a Sig 200 before I ever rank him up or use him for that utility. So and it's somewhat true, because like fights like Korg or Electro, if he's not Sig 200, you're still taking some damage back. And also with Namor, he takes that damage that he would usually take and he throws it right back at the opponent. All this works with the suicide debuffs, and I did not know this up until now. I don't know why I thought about it. I only thought about, you know, damage back situations. Electro, when you attack him, he gives you damage back. I never thought about the debuffs. See, he falls under the category of taking a negative, turning it into a positive. That negative being the suicide damage. He throws that back at the opponent while he's attacking, of course. She was an honorable mention on my previous video because she's double immune. I kind of just put all double immune champs on honorable mention, but Guillotine 2099, she deserves to be on this list as my favorite suicide champs because, first off, double immune, obviously. Second, she's not reliant on the special one over and over again. The power drain isn't very strong, so she's not going to be like your number one option when it comes to power drain. It's a decent power drain. I usually never find myself using it. But usually when you're using Guillotine 2099, you want to always go for the special 3. And because of that, if you knock out the opponent with a special 3, next fight you start with 100 hits on your combo. And that's when Guillotine has crazy damage. This is when she gets to 100 hits. So whenever I'm using Guillotine, I just get up to 3 bars of power. I sit there and I wait until I get to the perfect chance to knock out the opponent with a special 3. And then also when she gets down to a certain point of health, she has a regeneration. Most robots do in this game, or like Hulkbuster. Once he gets down to a certain level of health, he gets a regeneration. Same thing with a Guillotine 2099. And then also one of her pre-fight abilities, I'm pretty sure, if I remember this right, she has a power steal ability, and she also has a regeneration steal ability. I'm not sure that's exactly what it's called. I'm just going off the top of my head here. Life steal, that's what it's called. She has life steal on the opponent, so extra regeneration. Next champ also got an honorable mention because he's a double immune robot, and that's Warlock. Now Warlock, obviously he's double immune. He doesn't have any regeneration except on the special 3. He regenerates based on how many how many stacks of virus he has on the opponent. He regenerates. It's not a strong regeneration. It's a little bit, it helps a little bit. I've never really used it a whole lot. But usually what you're doing with Warlock is his heavy attacks, has a crazy bleed. Usually never using the special one, has a decent shock damage and power drain, but it's nothing like ground breaking. You're not using Warlock for the special one. You're using Warlock for the special 2, because that special 2 is crazy when it comes to damage, and it has a crazy armor break. So it's basic why I'm putting Warlock on this list. Double immune robot, doesn't rely on special 1 spamming, more like he's always using special 2. And if you're like in a tight situation and you need some regeneration, you're like just desperate for regeneration, use a special 3, and he has a... I haven't used it a whole lot. I've never really tested it out because I'm always using the special 2. But the special 3, from what I remember a few times I've used it, it's not great, it's not good, it's just decent. Alright, after those champs I just mentioned, once again it's time for honorable mentions because there are a few champs I missed honorable mentions last time. Let me get my list here. Alright, Angela, before her buff, she was an honorable mention that I missed because she has a decent regeneration, and you're usually never using the special 1 if I remember. I don't have a whole lot of experience using Angela. Now, after her buff, I still really haven't watched a whole lot of gameplay videos. I don't know why, and I haven't tested her out. But from what I've heard, the more buffs that she has, she can purify debuffs, is that correct? So I'm assuming this might work out with the debuffs with Suicide Masteries. I'm not too sure, haven't tested this out, I might be 100% wrong. But if anything, she still has regeneration buffs, and they're pretty strong, so she has that. Next on the list is... who is that? Man-Thing. Now, as far as I know, there are not a whole lot of Man-Thing enthusiasts or big fans out there. He's a decent champion. He's not great. Why he's not higher on this list is he needs to be awakened. And it only works when he's below 50% health, I think. You'll get a regeneration buff. I think when he's above 50% health, after throwing a special attack, you get a fury buff. But when you're below 50% health and you throw a special attack, you gain a regeneration. I'm pretty sure it's how it works. The regeneration isn't very strong. It needs to be like really high sig, of course. But he is bleed immune, so that helps. You know, that's why he's on this list as an honorable mention. He's bleed immune too. Weird enough, he's not poison immune. I thought he'd be poison immune because he's a big sludge. He's a man thing. He's like a swamp monster. You'd think he'd be poison immune because he's basically just one big walking poison manifestation. I don't know. And then, this is a weird champ, Dr. Voodoo. Now, I honestly forget Dr. Voodoo's in the game. But this badass mofo has a regeneration buff, a strong regeneration buff, at the start of every fight. Now that is crazy. Every single fight, he starts off with a regeneration buff. Like I said earlier, this is just my personal opinions. You know, these are my experiences with champs in MCOC I think are good with suicides. Now, I haven't used every champ in MCOC. I don't know about every champ in MCOC. There are so many damn champions in MCOC. Now there are champions that I thought I knew about that are getting buffed. So, honestly, I can't keep up with every single champion. These are just my experiences. There are probably lots more champions. I'm gonna list them right here. Champions that are probably good with suicides. I don't know enough about them to make a definitive statement. So these champs have they have reasons that they could be good with suicides. They might be, they probably are. I don't know, because these are just my experiences. I can't play with every single champ in the game. And yeah, thanks for watching. Might have to make a part 3 later in 2021, if I get the chance to play with these champions I listed right here, and then new champions are coming out, and then champions that are getting buffed. So yeah.